Have you ever noticed that when you start to change for real, the people around you begin to feel uncomfortable? They don't say it openly, of course. They hide it behind jokes, behind advice disguised as concern, or in that awkward silence when you start speaking about something deeper. But underneath, what's really happening is simple. Your mental evolution threatens their comfort zone. And no one likes to be forced to confront their own complacency. Maybe you're going through this right now. You started thinking differently, acting differently, questioning things you once accepted without a second thought. And suddenly, you feel alone, misunderstood, judged. What no one told you, but what Nietzsche understood better than anyone, is that this is the price of building a strong mind. Not just any strength, but a force so intense, so authentic, that it makes others uneasy. It scares them. It exposes without a single word, the weakness of those still living on autopilot. Why does this happen? Because a truly powerful mind is a threat to collective mediocrity. And Nietzsche was clear about this. When you decide to think for yourself, to create your own values, to abandon the comforting illusion of ready-made truths, you become dangerous. Dangerous to the system, dangerous to others, and most importantly, dangerous to your former self. This video is a call, a challenge. It's not made for those who want comfort or easy answers. It's for you. If you're tired of being a hostage to your own insecurities, if you feel on the brink of an inner rupture, if you're ready to build something that no one can break, a mind that cannot be manipulated, a mind that terrifies because it refuses to bend. So if you're ready for this path, a lonely, harsh, but absolutely transformative path, stay. Because what Nietzsche has to teach you will confront you, but it can also set you free. And after this, you will never think the same way again. Nietzsche was not just a philosopher. He was a surgeon of the human soul. Someone who had the courage to stare into the abyss of existence and not only face it, but dive headfirst into it. And it was precisely in that abyss, in that inner chaos that so many avoid, that he found the source of true strength. For Nietzsche, transformation doesn't happen in peace, stability, or order. It happens in pain, in the fall, in chaos. He wrote, "You need to have chaos inside you to give birth to a dancing star." This isn't just poetic metaphor. It's a psychological diagnosis. If you want to build an unshakable mind, you must abandon the childish notion that it happens through comfort, cheap motivation, or positive affirmations. No. True strength is born when you face suffering without running, when you stop begging for life to be easier and start wishing to become stronger. Think of the times you grew the most. Was it when everything was fine? Or was it when you were shattered, lost, forced to rebuild yourself with your own hands? Nietzsche believed suffering was not a mistake of existence. It was its main driving force. He didn't romanticize pain. He used it as a tool. And if you can change your relationship with pain, with failure, with loneliness, you begin to shape something rare, an indomitable spirit. It's precisely there that the world begins to be disturbed by you. Because while most flee chaos, you'll learn to walk within it. While others beg for normality, you'll create greatness. But this transformation requires a brutal break with everything you've been taught about strength. Being strong isn't smiling all the time. It's not pretending at fake emotional control. Being strong is enduring the unbearable and coming out on the other side even more dangerous. But Nietzsche also knew chaos alone isn't enough. You can be destroyed by it if you lack an inner anchor. That's why, in the next part, we'll explore the most decisive moment of Nietzschean philosophy, when he kills God and places the full weight of existential responsibility on your shoulders. Because when there's no longer a sky to look up to, it's within you that the universe must be born. When Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," he wasn't celebrating. He was issuing a warning most still don't understand. What he killed wasn't a divine being, it was the illusion that a higher authority is taking care of everything, that there's a plan, a pre-written meaning, a purpose granted by someone else. The death of God is the end of excuses, and that's terrifying. Until then, it was easy to outsource responsibility, comforting to believe everything happens for a divine reason, that suffering fits into a higher good. Nietzsche violently tears that veil away. He looks you in the face and says, "You are alone. There is no ready-made meaning. Now, you are the creator." This is where the true construction of a powerful mind begins. Most people collapse when they realize they stand alone before chaos, without a manual, without guarantees, with no one to blame. But those who dare to face this without crumbling, they begin to forge an unbreakable consciousness. With the death of God, Nietzsche pushes you into the abyss of radical freedom. No more commandments to follow. You must create values. No more obedience. You must surpass yourself. It is the birth of brutal autonomy, and with it comes the weight. Everything now depends on you. There's no absolution, no salvation. Either you build yourself, or you sink. But here's the secret. This freedom that frightens you is also your greatest source of power. Because when you understand no one is coming to save you, something ignites within. A fire that drives you to rise, even while bleeding. That compels you to think, feel, and act, not because someone says it's right, but because you decided it is. It's in this rupture from existential crutches that Nietzsche prepares the ground for something even more grand. The emergence of a new way of being. A human who doesn't live by the herd's rules, who needs neither approval nor permission, who creates their own morality, surpasses their limits, and lives as a creator. A being so rare, they frighten the weak, because they force them to see themselves as they truly are. This being has a name. Nietzsche called it the Übermensch, the Overman. And if you want to build a mind so strong that no one can break it, you must learn how to become this figure who lives above conventions, guided solely by their own will to power. Because the Übermensch does not adapt to the world. He imposes meaning on the world. He does not seek comfort. He seeks greatness. He does not ask, "Is this allowed?" He asks, "Is this worthy of me?" This shift changes everything, but it requires sacrifice. You'll have to kill parts of yourself that still beg for approval. Endure the pain of not belonging. Carry the weight of building your identity from scratch, without guarantees, applause, or pats on the back. Most can't handle it. They run back to the safety of ready-made beliefs, dogmas, and rules written by someone else. The path to the Übermensch is lonely. Nietzsche knew this. He lived on the margins, misunderstood, called mad, isolated from the world he was trying to free. But it was in that very isolation that he found his freedom. This is what you need to understand. The stronger your mind becomes, the farther you drift from the masses. The higher you rise, the more you disturb. Becoming the Übermensch is the most brutal, transformative process anyone can undertake, because it demands you destroy everything that isn't truly yours, everything imposed by a sick culture and a society that rewards obedience while punishing authenticity. Only after this destruction can you begin to build. But this construction doesn't happen in crowds. It happens in silence, in withdrawal, in the deep solitude that separates the strong from the weak. That's why, in the next part, we'll dive into the most neglected yet most powerful aspect of this journey, the solitude of the strong. Because if no one told you yet, to become unshakable, you will have to learn to walk alone. And few are ready for that. And remember this raw truth: the stronger you become, the more lonely you feel. Not because you choose isolation, but because the world simply doesn't know what to do with someone like you. Nietzsche spoke clearly about this. The free spirit, the one who breaks from common morality, rejects easy truths, thinks for themselves, inevitably distances from the herd. And that distance hurts, but it's necessary, because true growth needs space. You cannot grow while tied to others' expectations. Most people live in an invisible herd, every thought policed, every action measured by others' reactions. They've grown used to moving in groups, feeling secure simply because there are people around them. But Nietzsche tears you from that comfort and throws you into the desert. And in that desert, there are no cheers, no guides, no praise, just you, your doubts, traumas, fears, and desire to give up. That's where the real test begins. Most will run back, hide behind masks, pretend not to see. But you, if you truly want a mind no one can break, will have to stay. You'll have to endure the silence that reveals who you really are. Nietzsche said, "The individual must always struggle not to be overwhelmed by the tribe. If you try, you will often feel lonely and sometimes frightened. But no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. That's the essence, the possession of oneself, the rarest, most powerful thing anyone can achieve. Because when you truly possess yourself, no one else can control you. No one dictates your worth. No one can bring you down. But this comes with the weight of loneliness. You will lose people, be misunderstood, called arrogant, strange, distant. They'll try to pull you back into the mold, call you crazy, cold, insensitive. That is the price of not being domesticated, the price of not needing applause, of not living as a mirror for others. Here's the raw truth. If you cannot stand loneliness, you are not ready for freedom. Because all real freedom comes with abandonment of emotional crutches, of comfortable illusions, of utilitarian friendships. That's why Nietzsche saw solitude not as a curse, but as a privilege, a battlefield where the true self finally has room to emerge. Because this free mind, this elevated spirit does not just walk alone, it begins to see what others cannot. And with that vision comes the second inevitable effect, the confrontation with mediocrity. Because when you start to become strong, collective mediocrity feels it, and it reacts. That's what we'll explore next, the danger of collective mediocrity. Because the world doesn't chase those who are the same. It hunts those who dare to stand out. Nietzsche did not fear tyrants, authoritarian leaders, or open oppressors. What he feared, and denounced with philosophical fury, was the subtle, corrosive power of collective mediocrity, that invisible system that keeps everyone leveled down, that punishes those who dare to think differently, that rewards obedience and disguises cowardice as virtue. Because true tyranny, according to Nietzsche, doesn't come from above. It comes from the sides. It comes from the crowd that demands you stay small so they don't have to grow. And that is exactly what happens when you start to stand out. When your mind becomes sharper, your spirit firmer, your presence more unsettling. You begin to disturb, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're doing something rare. You're breaking the mold. And society hates those who break molds. Collective mediocrity cannot stand individual brilliance, because that brilliance exposes the emptiness of ordinary life. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a morality built by those who, unable to achieve greatness, decided to invert values. They transformed strength into arrogance, ambition into selfishness, independence into coldness, and with that, they created a moral system that protects the weak and condemns the strong. But make no mistake, this is not compassion. It's resentment, because the weak do not want to be saved. They want the strong to be destroyed. That's why, when you start to liberate yourself, they begin to attack, sometimes directly, sometimes subtly, with looks, with silence, with irony. But the message is clear. Go back to the group. You're making us feel small, and you are, unintentionally, just by being who you are. Nietzsche understood that most people live in a state of paralyzing conformity, an existence shaped by fear, guilt, and obedience, and anyone who questions that state becomes a threat. But don't be fooled. Mediocrity doesn't attack with brute force. It attacks with numbers, with consensus, with the weight of repetition. It will try to make you doubt yourself. It will make you think you're wrong for not fitting in. It will use every social weapon, from shame to exclusion, to make you lower your head. And it's at this moment that many give up, because they cannot bear to be the strange one, the difficult one, the arrogant one. But Nietzsche would give you another name, necessary, because while the world spins around recycled ideas, manufactured desires, and comfortable illusions, it is the strong individual who brings the necessary discomfort for something new to be born. Your difference is the spark of transformation, but it is also the target of resistance. Being strong, thinking freely, living autonomously, all of this is an act of war against collective mediocrity. And like any war, it requires preparation. It requires weapons, but not physical ones, mental weapons. And that is exactly what we'll talk about now in this final part. Because there's a high cost to developing a mind so strong that it frightens. But there is also a reward that no one can take away. You've made it this far. That already sets you apart from the majority. Most people would have closed this video at the first provocation. They would have run at the first discomfort. They would have turned it off the moment they realized this isn't content meant to stroke the ego. It's a call to action. A call for those who are ready to drop the comfortable illusions and face reality with eyes wide open. Because building a mind so strong that it becomes feared is not just a choice, it's a renunciation. You will lose. You will lose friendships that were built on superficiality. You will lose opportunities that demand submission. You will lose the ability to be content with small, safe illusions. But in return, you gain something priceless: integrity, clarity, presence. You will start to notice that most people live in a kind of sleep, and your lucidity terrifies them. Your firmness makes others tremble. Your absence is often louder than the presence of many. And this strength does not come from outside. It's not found in self-help books or earned through empty affirmations. It is carved deep within the soul, in the silence of difficult nights, in the choices no one sees. It is the result of an internal war between who you were and who you are becoming. And this war has no end, because the truly strong are not those who have already won, but those who keep fighting, even when they could have stopped. Nietzsche did not want to create followers. He wanted to provoke internal earthquakes. He wanted you to stop crawling for approval, to stop begging for meaning, to stop seeking in ready-made systems what can only be built with blood, sweat, and ruthless awareness. He wanted you to become dangerous, not in a violent sense, but in a rare sense, so rare that your mere existence forces others to look in the mirror and confront what they've been avoiding. So now, I want to invite you to do something that will anchor this process. Write in the comments a truth you're tired of hiding, an opinion you're afraid to voice, a thought that makes you feel isolated, but that represents who you truly are. This is part of the journey, claiming your voice, showing your presence, and more than that, declaring that you will no longer bend. And if this video touched you, if something inside you was awakened, don't stop here. The next video is just as important as this one, maybe even more so. It continues this journey. And if you've made it this far, you know you're not here out of mere curiosity. You're here because something inside you has already begun to change. So keep going. You are not alone. You are just ahead. And that, my dear, is frightening. But it is also liberating.